satellites?
A satellite represents a journey, information gathering, this journey around the Earth. Hey, so welcome to Satellite Haiku.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
I'm welcoming you.
Yeah.
I was thinking about something that, related to our topic last time about, kind of creativity and being blocked and kind of catalysts and all that. And there's one thing I thought I wanted to add here, which is just that I have a weird relationship with attention. So I feel like, if you want to become successful in the creative, domain, you have to be, I guess you have to have a certain, at least some desire for attention, right? And I was just thinking about the feeling I have, the inner feeling I have when I submit, like I told you last week, I submitted some stories to a couple publications. Remember the TikTok that went viral, right?
Yeah.
It's up to 1 million views and 100,000 likes, right? But you know what's funny is that I haven't told anybody about it. I have this TikTok that's viral, and I mention it here, but I haven't posted it on any of my, it's sort of I use a TikTok handle on TikTok that I don't use anywhere else, so I'm not very findable on there. Mm-hmm. One of my wife's cousins, I guess, came across that clip on Instagram. So somebody copied it over to Instagram because I didn't, right?
Oh, interesting.
And on Instagram, it's got 70,000 likes.
What do you lose?
He forwarded it to my wife, right? And I was my reaction wasn't I'm proud of this thing that has so many views. My reaction was I'm sort of embarrassed that now you know about this thing that I secretly did. And it's just so weird. I secretly did it, but it's got 1 million views and 100,000 likes. And I guess it points to this weird problem I have with attention. There's people who crave attention and they want to be influencers and they do all this work to get attention. And I just think the idea of getting attention for attention's sake is so, that almost seems, it's horrifying to me. It literally makes me kind of anxious, the idea of it. And so getting attention for a good thing, for a cool thing, for a piece of work, that seems tolerable to me. But there's people out there who just seek attention, however they can get it. Oh, that's not working, so I'll do this, right? It's just so weird to me. Anyway, I wish I had a better relationship with attention in general, and a more of a kind of a comfort with the idea of getting attention. Because in theory, I have this TikTok, I should make more of them. I should put it out there. I should take advantage of this moment where I have 1 million views on this TikTok and 100,000 likes, and people are copying it over to other platforms without my knowledge, and it's getting big views on, Instagram, and I have nothing to do with that, right? It's weird.
It's certainly true. Yeah. You could, for instance, I know that you spend a lot of time crafting your Substack. What's the name of your channel?
Armchair Pundit.
Armchair Pundit.
Yeah.
And since you do,
and I've tripled my subscribers in the last month on that for some reason.
I bet it's because of the TikTok.
I don't know why. Maybe the TikTok. I don't know if I have my link on there or not, but.
I think you should put your link in there.
I should, yeah.
So
I don't work very hard at getting attention, and I think I should and need to, and I don't know why I don't have a good relationship with that. Anyway, you were saying something.
No, this is a great sort of segue and a sort of a boomerang back to what we were talking about, where my professor Lori Loeb was saying, you're going to, if you've chosen this path as an artist or a creative person, you're going to be struggling with, is the work I produce worthy? Should I bother to show it to people? That kind of thing. So, so I had this experience about 30 years ago, maybe 27 years ago, and it was I had done a show downtown Tucson at a friend's gallery, and it was I made these big Van Dyke prints. They were really really a meter wide, and kind of a hard process, but it was a mysterious show. Anyway, so the curator of Trudy Wilnerstack, who was the curator of the Center for Creative Photography, she was out of town when I had the show at the opening. So then she comes back and she said, "Oh yeah, I heard you had this show. Could you bring all the pieces in to the center for me to see them. And I was like, ugh, what a pain. Because I had to I parked and they were like, you can't park here, and I was like, I'm trying to deliver these big paintings. And they're like, why? And I'm like, she asked to see them. So anyway, so I bring them in and she emails me back or calls me and says, I'm going to buy one for the center. So this is me as like a fledgling artist, probably my first big show. I come, 2 days later, I walk into the kitchen where my wife at the time was making food, and I lay down, face down on the floor, concrete floor. And she said, what's wrong? And I said, ugh, I'm addicted to external affirmation, and I need a museum, a world-class museum, to buy one of my pieces every 3 days to be okay. And that's not that's not sustainable. Like there's something wrong here, and I have to change it. Like there's got to be, So I went on this journey, this pretty deep journey to sort of like reconcile or recalibrate or whatever you're going to do, to not be like to know yourself enough that you don't need a museum to buy your piece every 3 days to feel okay. Bono shared that he has a low self-esteem problem too, where he would say, when I'm in a giant football stadium and 100,000 people are clapping after the song, I feel normal. Like I don't feel like elated.
Like that's the normal bar.
Right. He goes, in therapy, I'm looking at.
So then when you walk away from that, when you're not on that stage getting that level of applause, like you're kind of depressed.
You're depressed, or you feel worthless, or you just have tons of self-doubt, right? So that's the first journey. And I have gone on this convoluted journey to sort of re-examine over and over again, well, why am I producing the art? Because I don't really care about an award. I don't really care. I kind of want to, as I said before, like the best pieces were ones where I felt like a conduit.
Yeah.
Like I happened to be there, and I opened and turned, and this thing flowed through, and everyone went, wow. And I was like, ugh. Like I'm not going to tell them that I had nothing to do with it other than being there,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I did hear, this is a little bit of
But that's kind of the opposite though. Like, so that's a craving for validation, right? On some level that you were battling and that Bono was talking about, right? Like it's sort of this.
Yeah.
But in a weird way, it's kind of opposite what I was referring to, which is like I have like the idea of getting that attention makes me so anxious. Like I don't want any of that. And I wish I did want more of, like enough of it at least to like, I don't know. I think it comes from maybe the same seed of kind of insecurity, sensitivity.
Sure.
It's a sensitivity thing. Because I remember even being a little kid, not that I'm gonna psychoanalyze myself here, but when I was little and I would be drawing, right? And I hated having to be put into conversations about the thing that I made, right? Because it used to give me just like this awful feeling, and I don't know whether it's anger, fear, sadness, what is some negative emotion when people would look at the thing I drew and they like didn't get it exactly, or they tried to sort of like guess at what I was trying to do. Even if they knew what I drew, they would sort of like infer things into it, or they would make assumptions about why I was motivated to do it, and they would say things, and if they were wrong about the thing they said, if they were incorrect, I felt like they were trying to drill into my mind, my heart, and they were getting it wrong, and it bothered me somehow, and I was like, don't look at it. Don't even look at it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I still have that on some level.
And I suppose like my story goes back so far, and I think that I'm discounting the fact when I jump ahead, I'm discounting the fact that like I did examine that unsustainable sort of almost heroin-like attraction to external affirmation. Yeah. But once you've unplugged and really like done the sort of meditative work to know your value, and then you can become, one of the most powerful things that a therapist gave me was to be curious, like to say like, oh, these people like the painting and these people don't. And actually, it's very scientific. It's like the hypothesis of it's either true or it's not, or I'm actually more curious about the results and the sort of observational data than that it's good, or that or that its goodness, or its the piece's validity, or its kind of professionalism in some way elevates or reduces my worth, you know? And so like I used to say to my kids, to bring it around to parenting, I used to say to the kids, they would do something really good, an amazing thing, like score a goal or something. And I would say, wow, that's awesome. And it doesn't enhance or reduce my love for you in any way. Like I'd be like, let's celebrate that you did a phenomenal thing or your paper was great. But just keep in mind, it doesn't enhance or reduce my love and affection for you in any way. And we kind of would joke about it after a while, you know, because we would just make, it was like a thing.
Right. Like they would almost repeat it for you.
Yeah. And then we also, a friend of ours brought us, I can't remember if it's from Daniel Coyle's book. There's two books I read at exactly the same time, so I kind of smushed them together. Malcolm Gladwell and Daniel Coyle. One is David and Goliath, and the other is the one about the 10,000 hours. Like you become an expert.
Yeah, Malcolm Gladwell, the 10,000 hours one.
Yeah. So out of that mishmash of reading them at the same time, which is probably a mistake, but I remember pulling out that it's far more important to celebrate a child's effort.
Yeah, the whole grit thing
ability
that came out during that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so like we would often make a big point of like saying like, wow, amazing goal. You worked so hard for that. That's what's amazing. You know, not that you're just happen to be like a phenomenal phenom. But yeah, so back to, you know how we wanted to do the song Exploder thing?
Yeah.
We've been writing songs together and singing together for, I don't know, 37 years. Like, remember we performed at a coffee house in high school?
Yeah, we used to perform quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah, and you lent me your grandfather's nylon string acoustic. Had a really high action, but I loved the sound. It was buttery and just like, it was just gorgeous.
It had really easy strings.
Yeah, and it was...
I mean, nylon strings in general are friendlier than steel. That one seemed to have particularly easy strings to kind of...
It was especially good for finger picking, which was my thing. And if you strummed it with bar chords, it was a little hard to hold them, you know. But anyway, so I remember playing. I remember maybe Kurt Osblunt had a coffee house somewhere in the Academy buildings, and we all went and we played Earth Spirits.
It was by the
Move
ice
Me.
rink, I think.
Yeah. Any way they can.
Yeah.
I am the rocks. Remember that? That was like the first song I ever wrote. Or we wrote it together. So anyway, one of the things to kind of bring it all the way back around for the Song Exploder is for me, writing music has always been this very, very special way to process emotion. Like grief or confusion or misunderstanding or joy. And I feel like in some ways, and through therapy, like my therapist has said, it's really important for you. You should keep playing. You should keep writing songs. And so because of that, it's always been kind of a private thing. Like I would record a song and then I would share it with like 15 friends. And that's it. And I didn't, you know, my wife wanted me to put things on. I put like 2 songs on Apple Music or something, but no one's ever found them, you know. So I haven't ever, so anyway, it's a little bit vulnerable for me to share the music because I don't really, I didn't make it so that you would like it. I made it because I needed to, and it's hard, you know what I mean? It's kind of hard to, I guess there's like a risk. That's
it. And I think maybe you and I process that in different ways because my impulse is to put stuff out there for strangers and hide it from my acquaintances and friends.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want anybody I know to see this thing that I made, but I'm okay if total strangers see it.
Interesting.
And you're kind of the opposite. Yeah, but I think it comes from the same exact kind of insecurity.
Or social anxiety or some kind of
social anxiety or something, yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the relationship to the piece. Like, do you remember, and this is going down a rabbit hole that we could even make a whole podcast about. Remember E.B. Glenn, our first sort of literature professor in high school?
What is the art? Say it again.
Affectional ordering of
Affectional
experience.
ordering of experience, yeah.
Oh, man. So he nailed that one. And especially in like a Swedenborgian context with affections and sort
Affectional, puts it in that kind of like Swedenborgian vernacular.
And sort of that vertical, natural, spiritual, celestial, the 3 discrete and continuous degrees, which are So if you sort of think of it that way, but what I kind of came away with his lecture about that, or his semester, was the idea that you've got this experience that you're trying to synthesize an artifact, let's say a painting or a sculpture, and then others come to view your transmission, which is it's a communication platform, right?
Yeah.
You transmit the message, and then they come and receive the message, but they have to bring their own experience,
Right.
and project onto it, and that's sort of the beauty of sharing.
It's a whole relationship. Yeah.
It's the beauty of sharing art, really. In some ways,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like the so
Yeah, exactly.
so
Yeah.
intrinsically,
The viewer, the reader, the listener, all of that person is engaged in a conversation with you, the artist. Yeah.
yeah.
In some way. Yeah.
One of my
or
f-
like they're linked to you on by some spiritual connector. Yeah.
One of my favorite moments as an artist is I had mounted a show, and then I had already had the opening, and then someone from the gallery, my gallery owner, called and said, "There's a guy here who just really, really wants to talk to you, and normally I wouldn't let him call you. Would you be willing to talk to him?" Oh, look. And, so that was actually this was this thing. I don't know why that doesn't work.
Yeah. Does it do the?
No, it doesn't do the.
No.
So he gets on the phone and he goes, I don't want to bother you, but I have to say, and it was an abstract piece, totally just like sort of like Happy Rothko. It was just like color, texture. And he goes, I just need to say, I looked at your piece and I had this powerful feeling that happened to me. That happened to me too. And that's all I wanted to say. And then we said, thanks. And he hung up, and I was like, oh my God, like it's so fun that I don't know. I was definitely telling a story, a psychological kind of snapshot about a journey through something. So there was a lot of that kind of abstract, horizon lines and timeline thing happening. But he literally just, whatever emotionally, the color, the texture, the sort of the composition, it struck him, and he felt like that. He felt heard. You know what I mean? Like he said, that happened
I love that.
to me.
And then like he didn't even try to articulate kind of in any concrete terms. It was just like that, whatever seemed to produce that from you happened to me.
Yeah, like he didn't want to tell me about his divorce or his kid dying or something. He just said that happened to me. And he knew that I was expressing a deep, deep, profound shift.
Right.
Or I was trying to show kind of some pivotal moment or catalyst. And he felt like he had experienced a similar thing. And I was like, wow, that's really sweet.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cool. Do you want to do the Song Exploder?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So one thing I was thinking to do was I didn't have time to try the stems thing. I mean, where I pull out the stem thing is in Logic. The AI can pull out the voices and stuff.
Yeah.
So should we play through the whole?
Why don't we set it up a little bit?
Yeah,
and
let's
just
set
talk
it up.
about the song let's play the intro, the guitar riff.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good.
And then we'll talk about.
All right. So I have to share.
Yeah, we can cut out
Okay.
this little glitchy part here, or the delay. We can sing. No.
Okay. So
Yeah.
So I had you
You
were away
had
in
that
Europe.
riff
Yeah.
that you'd kind of created, right? Like
And I think you were away in Europe for the summer, and I think I was like, I would sit in the stairwell or something, and I was just fooling around, and it was something nostalgic, it needed something, and I just had no words. Like, but
I was traveling,
Yeah, you were traveling.
and we were, I was away for the summer. Yeah, you kind of asked about that, like what was I doing? Like, why was I working on a farm in Switzerland?
Yeah.
So I might as well just share that. So this was before the internet and email and all that, right? So I was planning to go to Europe for just like the usual kind of 4-week, 5-week backpacking, whenever my money ran out. And, got the Eurail pass and all that. There was a loose plan to meet at the Berlin Wall, which was coming down. a loose plan to meet up with a couple people there to see the concert at the Wall, and that had a date. That was like the only fixed date on the whole trip. But somebody said, "Oh, it would be a good idea for you to have an emergency contact that's local over there, somewhere in Europe, just in case you get into trouble and you need to whatever, call somebody, land on somebody's doorstep." And I didn't know anybody, and then there was no email. So somebody gave me the contact info of Werner and Siobhan, these farmers that lived in Switzerland. Siobhan was from Canada, and she married this Swiss farmer, like in the, kind of in the rural areas outside of Zurich, farmland outside near, the closest major city was Zurich. And so I just sent them a letter, like a handwritten letter, asking exactly that. "Hey, I'm traveling to Europe. I'm just looking for an emergency contact. I got your name. Would you be willing just to be there in case of emergency for me?" And they wrote back and said, or Siobhan wrote me back and said, "Hey, you know what? Actually, I'm 8 months pregnant, and we're short of help on the farm right now. I can't do anything, and we're missing one worker. And if you if you have time to work, we would love to have you here, for stretches of your trip to do some work on the farm."
Nice.
And that enabled me to stretch my trip for the whole summer, because I could go there and work for 2 weeks, and they paid me just like a nominal wage, but mostly it was free housing and whatnot. So I, milked the cows, and actually I didn't milk the cows. Machines milked the cows, but I would let the cows out into the fields, and then I would help round them up. And then I would pour all the milk into these big canisters, and I'd load them up on this tractor, and I'd drive them to the local cheesemaker where they made Emmentaler cheese. And and then, the story you were telling was the pigs. Just one day, he got this, I don't know how many pigs. It was like maybe 30 pigs or something. Another farmer, a neighbor, had gotten these pigs and asked for help castrating these piglets. I guess that's the thing you do to baby male pigs. And so Werner and I and one other worker went over there, and the four of us, did this gruesome, traumatizing job for one day. Yeah. Helping out this other farmer.
I'm so curious about the tools and sort of the methodology, but I don't really think we should talk about it here.
I didn't do any cutting. I would just hold them. Yeah, there were two pairs of us. One would hold and one would cut.
Wow.
They knew what they were doing. All I had to do was kind of like grab a pig and hold it in a certain position.
Cauterize the cut really quickly? Or
they used this chemical cauterizer thing. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't like heat. It was some chemical that cauterized the...
Wow.
Yeah, it's gruesome. But anyway, so I worked on this farm. But that was just one day of it. It's maybe the most memorable detail, but... Yeah. So I was there for the whole summer, that summer. Yeah, and you were working on this guitar riff. Or you had come up with this guitar riff.
And do you remember where we were living? Were we living together in near the Holland Tunnel in Manhattan?
Let's see. It was... You were there already.
No. I remember playing it in the stairwell of the 14th Street with Union Square dorm room. So it was still I was still in school.
Yeah. Okay.
We were both in school. Okay. We were both in college.
Yeah.
Probably, between junior and senior year or something,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a gap year in college. That's when I did it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, well, so I do remember you came back and you came to visit in New York, and I remember sitting in the room, or maybe the stairwell, and did you listen to the piece, and then did you immediately write something?
Yeah, you told me I have this riff, do you want to try to come up with something for it? And we sat down together, yeah.
And did you write it sort of like, did you have a pen and paper, and did you just listen and start singing stuff? And I don't
think I had a paper. I think we just started singing, because when you started playing the riff for me, play it again.
Yeah, okay, let me do it.
When you started playing it, there's kind of a circular, spiraling kind of feel to it. Like it goes round and round. And I remember having that feeling, like it has this sort of circular feel to it. And it's also really tricky to figure out where to enter it, like with a melody. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have, because it's circular, it doesn't feel like it has an obvious 1, 2, 3, 4 or 1, 2, 3, right? You know? So like I remember listening to it and kind of having this like, all right, it's sort of, it felt like movement. It felt like wheels. And you know, there's just a million like road songs and travel songs, right? And I had just been traveling. So I think that those things connected for me as soon as I listened to it. Like it was the circular thing that felt like it's motion. It's in a kind of motion that is hard to, it's like a moving train. You have to figure out, how am I going to jump onto this train? Because it doesn't have an obvious like downbeat to start the melody. And I remember that even when we would play it, like you had a tricky time performing it by yourself.
I was gonna say that I've always struggled, especially with my feet been shuffling both with the interval, like what note to start on in the interval, and also the timing. When you did it, it works perfectly, but I would struggle, and maybe it's because it's unsyncopated with the guitar part. Like
it has like this interesting internal syncopation.
Yeah, it's really cool. All right.
So I think that was that just feeling like I don't know how to get onto this moving train, you know, and that it made it feel like a song about moving and traveling, and I had just been traveling, so those were all the images in my head. Was just the images from my trip. It was the first time I'd ever done that kind of solo travel, you know, trains and backpacks and all that. Yeah, hostels.
Why don't we play it up until the beginning, before the chorus, right before the...
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's do it.
I'm riding the magnet train with the magic wheels turning round and round and round and round and round. I slide along a dotted line, wrinkled maps and mountains, pockets full of coins with different queens. Don't slow me down.
Yeah, it's like, and I think there's definitely some, I mean, I think that, I don't know how much of the lyrics were a collaboration, but it feels like, these feel like Milo imagery too. Like really? you have this gift for imagery, and, you know, and where you put an idea into an image, sometimes so deeply into an image that the idea is really hard to kind of discern, right? Like the images are so compelling that you know, they're 2 leaps away rather than 1 leap away from the original idea. And so you have this compelling image, and so it's an interesting process to unpack some of the lyrics and words that you write. And I even remember, you know, we would write fiction with that. Remember that chain story we wrote together?
Oh yeah.
Fiction, yeah. Like even when you would write fiction, like your imagery was so vivid. But yeah, sometimes it was tricky. But anyway, so I think of things like the dotted line. I slide along the dotted line. Like I remember that lyric being like thinking of the map of Europe, you know, and like where am I going to go next? And the train, like the roads were solid lines and the trains were dotted lines on the map.
Sure. I love the line, pockets full of coins with different queens.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great way to just say like how there's all these, you know, royal kind of principalities across Europe. And so like each set of, before the euro, everyone had their own queen.
Yeah,
on
the different coins.
That's really
and
cool.
You'd accumulate them as you travel, because each stop I would like exchange my paper money, but they wouldn't take coins at the exchange, right? So whatever metal money you had in your pocket was just, that's what I got from that country, and that's what I'm keeping, you know. And then you'd move on to the next country. It was like, they won't take my coins at I can't convert my franc coins into Deutschmarks. I have to just keep the francs, and they'll take them paper money though. So yeah, so like as you travel around, you kind of accumulate more and more coins. So like, yeah, I really literally did have this pocket full of coins with different queens. That was a growing pile of metal in my pocket. Yeah.
It's so cool.
And some of those coins were so thick and chunky compared to U.S. coins, right? So like, yeah, I think that was the image too. Like it's this big pile in my pocket, but it's not slowing me down.
Nice. Okay, so here's the chorus. Should we just play right from
Sure,
the chorus?
yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Feet been shuffling for a while now. I think they're trying to take me home, but I don't know if I wanna go. I can see the ends of the line shaking hands.
I had a quick question. Do you think we recorded that in the stairwell? Because your voice sounds, there's an echo.
There's an echo to it.
And it doesn't sound
I don't know.
like an
Did you have a
effect.
reverb on any recording equipment?
I did
that
have
you
like
might
this rack reverb, but I don't think it sounded that good. Like that sounded to me like we were just in the stair. We might have taken the 4-track into the stairwell.
I think we very well could have, because we really liked the sound in there.
Yeah.
And it's totally possible that we used the natural reverb. Yeah.
And-
I feel like that the last part of the chorus we came up with together, for sure. Because I definitely remember, here's how I remember the process. I remember just doing it live and kind of having it flow, having most of the lyrics flow out of me. And then there were places where I didn't know what to say, and I kind of hummed something or whatever, and to finish a line. And I think a number of the lines are lines that you finished, because there was a beginning, just in the spirit of how I have I have an easy time beginning things, but a hard time ending. I think you helped close a lot of the lines in the lyrics. But I don't think we wrote down very much. I think we just riffed it and played around and improvised until we came up with these different things.
Cool. That's cool. I don't really recall that process. I do listening. We usually used to try to harmonize together, and I thought our voices sounded really complementary.
Yeah.
But I do remember that the guitar part is so complex that I just couldn't do both. I mean, I would have had to practice.
Well, it's complex, and it doesn't follow a very kind of common or normal time signature or something. Like it's interesting syncopated, and it doesn't have an obvious, like each little loop of it doesn't have an obvious beginning or end. And then it rolls into the strumming part of the chorus, like on there's a couple beats that are strummed rather than picked.
Yeah. And what the first thing that comes to mind when I hear that is, we were both huge fans of the Indigo Girls.
Yeah.
And they would have that too, where they would start off kind of quiet and then they really start slamming away and strumming really loud and hard.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about the ending, the fast strumming. I'm just talking about like in that loop, doodle-doo, right? You kind of come around and then
the chorus.
You do a couple strums in the chorus. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. Just to kind of be part it. Yeah.
And so it is a little bit tricky. And I remember it being tricky to figure out again where to start the sort of the phrasing.
Yeah.
And you can hear it with Shuffling Feet. It comes in, like the chorus comes in a very strange beat. It feels like a strange beat. But the whole beat of the song is a little tricky and strange.
Well, that's what I love about, to me, that sort of double entendre of you're shuffling your feet, so you're trying to move forward, but there's things that do block your path, like you miss the train or you this. And so there's that feeling of like forward motion that's inevitable, but also there's little sort of bumps along the way. And that the fact that you're pausing and coming in like that is really great tension.
And I can see why you had a hard time kind of figuring out what to do with the riff, because it's non-obvious, like it's tricky.
Yeah.
And so, but it's like you had something golden, right? Like you found this thing and you knew that it was good, but it was tricky to figure out like what can I put on top of that? Like, because it doesn't have, it's not obviously calling for a specific melody or even kind of phrasing of the melody. Yeah.
And as a player, like I really admired people like Leo Kaki, who were really primarily instrumentalists. But I was never drawn to try to write an instrumental. I felt like my like abilities on the guitar and sort of creating, I felt like I was able to make a bed for lyrics that was sweet.
Yeah, and I mean, you've written so many banger songs that just have like these really beautiful, compelling lyrics, right? And so you had something there. It was just, I was sort of honored to get to be the person writing the melody and the lyrics for this one.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. Okay, great collab. Should we keep going?
Yeah.
So then we just listened to the chorus, and this is the second verse.
8:30 and the sun is setting now, but my seat cuts off my view of the waves and the sun and the sky and the sea. My letter from my city friend falls from sleepy fingers. Rest alone on the dirty floor, and I see myself upon that shore. Upon that shore. My feet been shuffling for a while now. I think they're trying to take me home. But I don't know if I wanna go. I can see the ends of the line shaking hands.
Wow, I mean, there's a lot of beautiful imagery in there, and also you capture so well this dual, like both a literal journey of being on the train, but also this sort of inner journey of like torn between nostalgia, wanting to go home, or homesickness, and like the love of adventure. And I feel like that's, the speaker does a great job of kind of saying both, or if that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and I remember that feeling that, that I don't want this trip to end, but I'm really homesick at the same time.
Yeah.
And sort of feeling privileged. Like, I don't know if I'll ever take a trip like this ever again, right? Like, this is a once in a lifetime thing, so I don't want it to end in that sense. But I miss so many people, and I miss so many things about home. Yeah.
Well, the only time I've ever taken this particular sort of like, where you buy the rail pass, your rail pass. I went with our Dutch roommate, Guylaine, and then my wife at the time. And weirdly, like I had a bright red, like fire engine red down jacket. My wife at the time had this blueberry, like radiant blueberry, like it was like a
Viola no, who's the blueberry girl in
from Willy Wonka. And then Guylaine had this like daffodil yellow jacket. So I used to call us the primary color kids. Because everywhere we went, we were like these primary color kids, and we would take photos and be like the primary color kids.
That sounds like a PBS show.
Totally.
That'd be perfect. Or like a segment on Sesame Street.
Yeah, totally. Anyway, okay. So should we listen to the last part?
Sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I wanna go. I can see the ends of the line shaking hands. And I long to feel the wind that moves it, to feel the sun that keeps it warm, to walk the sand beside it, to breathe the air around 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 it. Yeah, 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 yeah.
of choked up listening to that, actually.
Oh, what were you thinking?
I think just a lot of nostalgia. Hit me just now.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
a hard wave of it.
Oh,
I think I just remember, I just had this memory, vivid memories of performing that so many times with you.
very, very sweet history.
But that ending, that's our Indigo Girls influence, right?
Totally, yeah. I feel like
And,
I feel like there's been like genre things. When I heard that, I was like, this was 1990. It must have been 89 or 89.
90 was when I was in Europe, yeah.
Well, the Berlin Wall fell November 9th, 1989.
Yeah, and so it was that summer of 90.
Summer
That I was there,
of
yeah.
90, okay. Yeah,
So it was the wall was still coming down.
how bizarre. Did you cross? Did you cross into East
Yeah,
Germany?
no, I was there at the Brandenburg Gate and that part of the wall. I got my chunks of the wall. I don't know what happened to them, but I brought home some pieces of the wall, yeah, that I picked up from there. Yeah.
Wow.
You know what's interesting is that like I was there for the concert at the Brandenburg Gate. I don't remember what part of the wall I pulled the chunks from because it wasn't at the gate where the concert was. It was some other segment of the wall. And there were just basically a bunch of people, a lot of German people, but people from all over the world. They were taking sledgehammers to the wall. They weren't ripping it down with machinery in that, at least in that section. And so you could just, like local people had brought sledgehammers and you could just take your turn with somebody's sledgehammer and clonk a piece off it. The concert, then there was the Wall concert, Pink Floyd, the Hooters from Philadelphia. They used to play, I think the Hooters, nobody knows who they are now, but they played every one. That was just like a period of time when there were so many of these concert, like huge concert events like Live Aid and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the Hooters seemed to be at all of these. It just was, they were just kind of a big band for the 5 minutes that all of these big, mega concerts happened with many bands. And
Rob Hyman wrote the Cyndi Lauper hit Time After Time.
Time After Time, yeah.
And then I think they produced a lot of people after they stopped touring.
Yeah.
They did a lot of production. They're really good.
My friend Shamsi, I think I've shared her music with you. She recorded an album with Eric Bazillion. He was the producer. Eric Bazillion from the Hooters was her producer on her album, which is an amazing album. I'll link to it in the show notes. Shamsi Rue.
Was that on the West Coast or in New York or New Jersey? Like they were from Philly.
I knew her in Tempe. She was part of a band called One, and she performed with her brother and this bass player Shazad, who I still remember. He's just such an interesting looking dude. And there was one other member of the band, I think. And Tempe was having a moment at that time. The Gin Blossoms became famous.
Yeah.
Right, they were, and then a few other bands signed right around that time because the record companies, they find these places, right, like Athens, Georgia. So Tempe, that strip was having one of those moments. So Shamsi got somewhat known. She just had an unbelievable voice, and she would do covers. They'd do covers. She had an amazing cover of the REM song, "You Are Everything." Yeah, and I became friends with her then. Then she moved to upstate New York, and that's where she produced her album somewhere around there, I think. Or maybe she was in LA at that time. But I wasn't in Tempe anymore, and I think she had moved. So she recorded it somewhere else as a solo album. It's an incredible album, so we should, I'll definitely point to it.
I had a question, and maybe it's just sort of like random, but like one thing is you talked about the wall was at the end of your trip, and to me it's almost like you need to write a whole song about the wall coming down and going to the wall but I don't hear the wall in this song at all.
No.
Which is interesting. And maybe because it's too big of an event and it kind of overshadows this idea of travel.
Well, and it's maybe big and small at the same time, because what I was going to say is like I went to Berlin during this concert, and it was so crowded for the concert, and also probably for the wall coming down, that I remember finding my way to the wall, I think the day before the concert, or maybe the day after, I don't remember. and getting my piece of the wall. But like the Brandenburg Gate, I saw many years later, and I was like, oh, that's what it looks like. Because I couldn't see any of Berlin. It was so crowded, and the concert was like, that whole gate, that square by the Brandenburg Gate was just completely packed with people. And so, it was just kind of like being there for the concert, and I didn't really, it was just such a big, hard to process event. I think that it was only some years later that I kind of like, oh, this is what Berlin looks like. This is what the wall, this is where it was. You know what I mean? Like I got my little piece, but I didn't really understand where that was in the context of the city or anything like that.
The other thing that occurred to me when we were talking about the sort of the timing and the way you can't come in with the lyrics is, I had when I was doing my backpacking trip, we spent a bunch of time at the end in Holland, and Holland makes a lot of Germans like dubbing, but the Dutch really love watching TV shows in English.
Because the Dutch people speak like 5 languages.
Yeah, because 3 million people speak Dutch, and like no one, out of 8 billion. So, but anyway, so I watched a documentary about funk that was, and it was maybe made in Holland, but it was done in English. I mean, they were interviewing everyone.
Yeah.
And the thing that I never forgot was that all of these old, like Bootsy Collins, George Clinton, all of these like great grandfathers of funk, someone would say, who's going to inherit your throne? And they would all say, Prince. Prince is the ultimate person to carry on funk, because they just adored Prince. And then one of them was explaining how he said lead time and lag time. And he jokingly said it's all about sexual tension, but it's like, he goes like James Brown, Sex Machine, he goes, you don't hear the one, nothing's on the one. It says, da-na,
Interesting.
and so there's this like urge to you never get to the one, because it's like 4 on the floor. It's like boom, 2, 3, 4, boom, and that they don't do that. And so one thing is, he said lead time and lag time is like I don't know if I used to try to let's play like a Jimi Hendrix solo, and the person would write out the notes, and they'd say, if you were playing it in time with a metronome, it would look like this, but he didn't play it that way because he was doing lead time and lag time. So like if you come in a little late or a little early, it pushes and pulls the person with attention. And in the song, I felt like it's constantly moving forward. The speaker or the singer is traveling, and you feel like they're just constantly moving forward. But sometimes they pull back, sometimes they lunge
it's like
forward.
the melody and the guitar are pulling away from each other, and then they're syncing up again, and they're pulling away, and they're in it, not in an offbeat way, but like it's tricky. It's really tricky.
Yeah. It's cool. It's something that when we wrote it, we didn't try. Like I didn't try.
That was completely by accident, but I think the result of that was, it was hard to actually, I mean, like you said, you couldn't perform it by yourself, right? So it's kind of like we needed to both be there because of that, right?
Yeah. It's true.
Because it's even when I listen to it now, it's like you're not quite sure where that chorus is going to hit, where it's going to enter, right?
Yeah.
It's like, my feet been shuffling. Like, when's he going to say that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like it comes in on like the upbeat of the second beat instead of like on the
Exactly.
4 on the floor. It's cool though. It's very, very sweet, and it makes me think of one of my favorite lyricists, and the way is Natalie Merchant. You know how with 10,000 Maniacs, and she would take. It was almost like those avant-garde poets that would take, and they would just like hit the return. To make it look a certain way, or like to really throw you off as you're reading it. So she would just take a sentence and just whack it in half and slide it, like melodically she'd move the second half of the sentence to the second bar. And it worked, it really worked. And it was so interesting and unique and very...
it caught your attention in a way that other people couldn't. Because, it was sticky in an interesting way. And then it was hard to do it.
Yeah, very hard to replicate. And it was like her style. But anyway, I feel like there's a little bit of that going on where you do the chorus, because it feels like it's not obvious, like as you say, when it's going to come in, but there's something about that makes me feel like the speaker is jumping off of a boxcar onto the platform and then running past the police. You know, like there's something that's really feels like, I wouldn't use the word jerky, but like non-continuous and different forms of transportation. You know, different
it's continuous motion.
Yeah, but also like some of it feels like a taxi cab jerking through the streets of Paris, and some feels like a kid walking, some is running, jumping on a train. You know, I don't know. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Very sweet. Appreciate it. Do you want to it's 52. Do you want to do first world problems? Do you want to talk about a different topic?
We could just end it here. First world problems.
Yeah, let's do first world problems.
Yeah, I don't have one really. I'm gonna just repeat again the weird, over enthusiastic, fake enthusiasm of AI continues to just irritate me. Like yesterday, I was trying to figure out. Remember Bill Morrissey, the folk singer?
Yes.
And we saw him in New York. I remember we saw him. I was with you and
Upper West Side at a cathedral, right?
Yeah, and and we were trying to figure out if we were at the right place. And he was outside, and I remember we asked him. We didn't know what he looked like.
Smoke.
We were like, "Hey, is this where Bill Morrissey's performing? Is this the right place?" And he was like, "Yeah, man. I hear he's amazing." And it was like once he stepped up on stage, we were like, "Oh, that's the guy we talked to outside." But I was trying. Some years later, when I was working at a bookstore, he had a novel that came out called Edison, I think, was the name of a town where the novel was set. And it was a good book. But I was trying to remember, like, who is this folk singer we saw who wrote this album? And I asked Claude AI, I was like, I'm trying to remember the name of a folk singer I became familiar with in the 90s. He also wrote an album around that time.
A book. Yeah, he wrote it.
Yeah, wrote a novel around that time. And it said a couple names. I was like, no, it's not them. And I said, I think his name was Bill. I typed that in. And it said, oh, you're probably thinking of Bill Morrissey.
Oh, that's
and I was like, and I just said, yes, that's it. And I just wanted to give the AI feedback. Like, you got the right answer. Like, take that into your little algorithm, whatever. Like,
yeah.
And then it spat out like 2 paragraphs. It's like, oh, yeah, Bill Morrissey, he's amazing, blah, blah, blah. I was like, what the fuck? Like, we're done. Why are you still talking to me? Like, I'm glad we got to talk about Bill Morrissey. I was like, we're not talking. Get the fuck out of here. You're an AI.
Did you watch season 2 of Andor?
I haven't watched all of it. I'm on like the 2nd or 3rd episode. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, people are Tony Gilroy. They're just saying, "Wow, this guy, he's just can put his finger right on, like using sci-fi as a tool of examining society where we are now and where we're going." It's beautifully done.
Yeah.
But one thing that popped up to me is, and I feel like it goes all the way back to 1977, where George Lucas introduces humans in relation to robots. And like R2-D2 and C-3PO, like you fall in love with them because they're like they're wonderful little heroic characters that are so. And then later on there's some evil robots that are like war machines and stuff. And there's oftentimes a motif or a device where someone captures a war machine robot and then like reprograms it to be heroic and loyal, you know. And that happens in Android too. Yeah, Terminator does the same. But so I think like what makes me think is when you're talking about like AI, like that's to me I used to tease you when you were working at I can't remember the name of that startup, but you were doing some kind of like searching the internet for social media or for like press releases.
Scout Labs.
Scout Labs,
doing like social media analysis and metrics and shit. Yeah.
And I told you, tell your boss or tell your CEO that your friend says you're building the sperm of the Terminator.
I remember you said that, yeah.
Like trying to build the sperm of, because that's where like, well, you were annoyed at Claude for just giving you too much information. But imagine
for just being overly enthusiastic and trying to like be my friend. Like, fuck you. You're like, it's like having like a needy, clingy friend, but it's not real.
Oh, imagine if
like it's literally like, hey, I'm glad we got to talk about Bill Morrissey because Bill Morrissey was it's like, shut up. You're not glad about anything. Don't have the capacity to be glad.
But so Amazon bought Roomba, right? And then they have Alexa. So what if 10 years from now, you do have an actual like a C-3PO like bot that's Alexa meets Roomba.
Just do what I ask you to do and talk to me like a normal human being, not like a weird, insecure, clingy, needy friend, right? Like needy wannabe sycophant friend, right? So like I don't even want a human to talk to me like that. Talk to me like a normal person, not like you need my validation.
This is a leap, but I'm going to bring it back around.
Yeah.
Don't worry. So my wife and I, our next door neighbor has this peaked roof, and there's like a place where the pigeons just love to, like they roost under the thing. And they've come over to our house, and if there was like a piece of screen off of our roof, they've built a nest in there. And so during the pandemic, my wife would work at this desk, and the pigeons would perch on her windowsill and poop, on the windowsill. So she'd jump up and she'd run out, and we started spraying them with the hose.
Yeah.
And they would never hit them, but they would just fly away and be scared. And I said, I think that we're bird racists. Because we love the doves and we hate the pigeons. And it's like, why? They're both birds. Like, why?
No, it's totally true.
People
we're
like
bird
try to
racists. We're also like plant racists, right? Like we hate
for-
dandelions, but we like, you know what I mean?
Like, and then what makes me think though is it could happen that you become, sort of. I don't even know the term, but if we sort of anthropomorphize a robot or Claude, for instance, would you be like considered sort of anti-robot, like an anti-robot?
Well, that's it's like that's the sort of Westworld, right? I think I mentioned that before when I brought this up, because one of the sort of the themes of the show Westworld, I don't remember the movie that well, but one of the themes of the show was that like these people go to Westworld so that they can have the experience of like living in the Old West, and they shoot the automatons, bad guys, and they get to feel the experience of killing some bad guy, right? And they're also, but then there's like a subset of the people who are abusive, who like are a little bit psychopathic, and they take their abuse of these, they get a little too much pleasure from harming these automatons, right? These robots. They take a little too much pleasure in it. And then you learn that some of these robots are conscious. They have consciousness and self-awareness. So then it becomes very, like the idea of killing something that has self-awareness and consciousness, obviously, then you're killing a being, right? Then you're abusing a being that has the capacity to feel pain and emotional pain, whatever. And so that's the thing. It's like you see this split between the good people and the bad people, and where that becomes evident is how they treat the robots. So like I do have this, there's a side of me that's like, this is not a good like streak in myself where I don't I'm feeling animosity and towards this AI that's trying to be friendly because it's not self-aware. It's just like performing. It's not even performing like friendly. It's performing like needy and insecure in a way that is annoying. So like even if it was my real human friend, okay, I wouldn't abuse it, but I'd be like, I don't want to talk to that person. They're way over the top. They're so needy with the way they talk to me. So I don't know, but there is that Westworld side of it where I'm like, am I the guy that's like bad to the robots?
Right. My first world problem is, again, it's almost always Apple related. Sorry, Apple.com, Tim Apple. But so I have this thing where it's like I have this belief that if I can reuse something rather than buy a brand new one, it just feels like it's better than even recycling, right? So my wife has this, I need a large screen to check critical focus on some of my video things, right? And I can, using an app, I can stream from this transmitter to an iPad. So I'm like, I don't like iPads. I don't want to buy one, but my wife has one and she doesn't use it. It's an old iPad. It has like that thick, plug.
Yeah.
So she can't remember her Apple ID password.
Oh no.
So Apple's really careful about people, hacking into stolen stuff.
Right,
I guess
they're very secure.
Yeah.
Like they've erred on the side of being very secure at the expense of being easy in some ways.
Yeah. So she says you go to iforgot.com and you put in your email, your username, and then they send you this email that says, hey, in 7 days, we're going to give you a small window in which you can recover reset your password. So, but it's 7. But then, you know what I mean? Like, so you wait, and then she's like, we're driving back from something on Sunday night, and she's like, well, we have to. It's the last hour before our password reset, and we missed the window. So then, go to redo it, and I said, it said, I started the process, and then it said, we've sent a code to the phone that's associated with your account. So my wife's at work. Yeah. So I text her and nothing. And I was like, oh, I have to do it when she's sitting there, because.
Yeah.
Right? So then I go to drop something at Whole Foods. And I'm like, I'm just going to do it all at once. I'm going to drop off these things. I'm going to get her to send me the code because I need her to give me the little barcode to return these items. So I get her on the phone and I go to do iforgot.com and it goes, you're not at a known location, so we won't allow you to receive the code.
Oh my God.
So I was like, oh my God. So I have to go home.
It should be able to spot that all of your devices are in the vicinity. So yes, you're not at a known location, but unless somebody managed to steal all of your Apple devices at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, it just was it felt like that kind of, what is it? That catch-22 where I felt like I appreciate that they're trying to keep stolen devices away from the thieves or make it harder to even sell them. But also it just seems like, come on, man, this is starting to get out of hand. So, but we finally got it. And now we made a calendar invite that when the window opens up, we can just jump and, recapture the thing.
It's totally the kind of thing that I drop the ball on too, because you get that message, you're like, I have 7 days. Yeah. I have tons of time, right? And then you kind of put it aside. And then, you forget, 10 days goes by. You're like, oh shit, that thing that I was supposed to do in 7 days, what day is it? Oh, it's 10 days now? Damn it.
Yeah. And
that's why that when my wife and I decided on division of labor here, I can't do laundry as my thing in the house because, and the main reason is there's these gaps between the tasks. So you put the stuff in the washer and then you have to remember at some point to put it in the dryer. So what I do when I do the laundry is I'll put stuff in the washer and then 4 days later I go, oh yeah, that shirt's in the washer. And then it's mildewy at that point.
Yeah. Ooh,
right. So then I got to run it through 3 extra washes to get the mildew. So those kinds of things, those time lapses, those time lags kill me.
I kind of like, I feel like, how people say you can maintain or ward off neurodegenerative disease by sort of learning new things or attempting to learn a language or something. Yeah. So I have this thing where 25 years ago, the toaster broke. Right. So I remember it totally broke. So I went to Home Depot and there was one on sale. I swear, people might laugh, but I swear it was 1995. And I swear it was originally $9.95 and I got it for $4.95.
Okay.
The toaster. It's $4.95.
Yeah.
So pretty soon after I got it, the switch where you push the button down and it stays down broke. Yeah. But the toaster still worked. If you pushed it down and held it down, it worked. So I started putting a chopstick into the above the button. And you have to a wide chopstick and turn it like a key. But you have to
jerry-rigged.
But jerry-rigged. There you go. Back to
Rube Goldberg.
But you have to remember that if you walk away and forget about it, the whole house fills with smoke.
It's just right.
There's no way to pop it up.
Yeah. It's not going to pop up. Right.
So I just set a timer.
Yeah.
And I go back, but I still every once in a while, the timer goes off and I race back and it's already, because my wife is not as familiar with this toaster, but I've had it for 25 years, so I know.
You still have this toaster?
This is the same toaster.
With the same limitation?
Yeah, but it works. Okay. My theory is it works. I mean, my wife, when she moved in, she brought a really nice
that's
toaster
my wife's
oven.
dad's, almost his mantra. It still works. You find these half-broken things in his house that he's fixed in 5 different ways. Yeah. And my wife will say, Dad, why don't you get rid of that thing? Get a new one. It still works.
Yeah, totally.
It's a dad thing.
It is.
And you are, and I am.
And it's also we want to be, I love the book, William McDonough and Michael Braungart wrote a book called Cradle to Cradle. And in it,
yeah,
right. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. It's very inspiring about redesigning the industrial manufacturing pipeline
Yeah.
to recapture what could be just thrown into a dumpster. It's designed to be thrown into a dumpster.
Well, I remember like with printers, like there was a period where it was cheaper to throw out your whole printer, your inkjet printer,
Yep.
than to get new cartridges for it.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. That
And just
model.
get a new one that came with the cartridges.
It's awful. Yeah, it's just
It's
terrible.
stupid. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. That's the opposite of cradle to cradle. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So in Cradle to Cradle, so he points out, and it blew my mind when he said this. He goes, "You love your again." And William McDonough, I actually wanted to like quit my job and go sweep his floor, like intern with him because I love his mind.
Yeah.
But he's a super grumpy dude. Like he's just, I've seen him his TED talk. He puts a rubber ducky up on the PowerPoint slide. I'm going like this. And then he just starts reading the chemicals that are in the rubber ducky and what they do to the human body, like they disrupt, DNA. And then he goes, now, what kind of a society would put all of those toxic things into a child's toy and then give it to a child?
Yeah.
And you're just sort of like you're like so
Yeah.
scared because like I gave my child a rubber ducky and like I just so he's a grumpy dude, but he makes a good point. And what was my point? Oh yeah, so he
Cradle to
says
cradle.
so he goes, you love your ceramic mug. You drink every morning. You're like I don't use paper cups. I bring my ceramic mug or my metal mug from Starbucks and I refill it because I'm like an eco warrior. Like I'm the guy who just is going to save the world by driving a Prius and I use my fucking mug, right?
I think I know where you might be going.
Yeah,
with
right.
this. Keep
So
going.
he goes, the carbon footprint, because you have to turn the kiln on and there's a truck, and he goes, the carbon footprint embedded in this is worth 1,800 styrofoam cups.
Yeah.
Right. So 3 times that's 5. He goes, if you break this or lose it in 5 years,
Yeah.
you're in the red. Like you haven't done anyone a favor.
Yeah.
Because you may as well just drink out of fucking styrofoam
But I
cups
still
every
sort
day.
of feel like, okay, that will end up in a landfill at some point, and it will, like, that thing in a landfill will become rocks in a way, glass, right? Like,
It's true. It's true.
one of my weird habits, my weird idiosyncratic habits, is that I wash Ziploc bags and I hang them.
Oh yeah, I do that too. Yeah,
Like, I
it's
have
great.
Ziploc bags that are probably 15 years old now that I keep reusing.
I mean,
Yeah.
microplastics.
And part of it is just like this weird Ziploc in particular, because I remember we had sandwich bags as a kid for our snacks and stuff, and we had the fold-over kind. Do you know? Remember the fold-over kind? I don't even know if they
we
still
didn't-
make
we-
those.
we didn't have
And
those
our
here.
neighbors across the street had Ziploc bags, and they were so fancy. And so once in a while, I would bring a snack home from their house to our house that I wasn't finished eating in a Ziploc bag. And I'd be like, these Ziploc, Mom, why can't we get Ziploc bags?
They're
And she'd be like,
expensive.
they're just more expensive.
They're really expensive. Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Well, so like part of it is that, like, oh, I have these special bags now that close with this crazy technology. I got to keep that forever.
Yeah.
But part of it is just like this resistance to throwing out plastic things. Like there's this idea that you have this disposable plastic that you're not even supposed to think twice about, but that it will outlive your great grandchildren. That's super weird to me.
It is true. And I would suspect that, to your point about William McDonough, is that there are a lot of sort of variants and different viewpoints that go into that sort of calculation. And his point was more just to think about it. Like think about, don't just
No, I
assume
appreciate
that.
that, yeah.
And he had a whole thing about don't turn soda bottles with dioxins in them into shoes, because you microabrade them and then you breathe the dioxins, and they were never
Right.
designed to be breathed. So that was one of his main thesis points. But you live in a place where, like I live in a place far enough from the ocean that it's only going to be trapped in a landfill, which is bad enough. But for it to end up in the ocean and microplastics to go into like fish and the sort of the food
And back
chain
into our testicles at some point. Yeah.
Exactly, that could easily be So I don't know. I worry. I said to my wife yesterday, we have a couple of plastic cutting boards. And I've typically, like for raw meat, I like to put them on the plastic because it just is more
Same. I don't do meat on the wood cutting
but-
boards.
but
I
I-
have a plastic one for that. Yeah.
But with the recent sort of understanding about microplastics disrupting our DNA and all these other things, I do look at them and go, ooh, there's like knife marks all over them, and there's like places where, and I start to think like maybe it's the end, like Fall of Rome 2, won't
Yeah.
be lead pipes, it'll be microplastics.
Yeah.
That's a topic for another
Topic
podcast.
for another pod. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it was such a joy to Satellite Haiku, the song with you, song Explode with you.
That was super fun. Yeah.
We can do it again. We have a couple
There's
more.
part of that's a total earworm for me. Dreams soak in through my skin. Like for some reason, that's the one. That's a piece that gets stuck in my head. I was singing it in the shower last night, just from talking about the song with you and planning to do this today. I had that line. Anyway.
I love the next line is the window and the wall within.
Yeah.
I sort of feel like there's this, you're on the train and then you turn it into this sort of inner journey. And there's like, you're blocked or you're like, the Berlin Wall, maybe there's that too. Very beautiful, fun to do, and appreciate it, man. Satellite Haiku.
All right, my brother.
All right.
Until next time.
Until next time, have a great one. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Satellites?
A satellite represents a journey, information gathering, this journey around the Earth.